So the next question is, how does Geese compare to Tamil as a language of power? Which one would you master given the opportunity? Could the ultimate root tongue be telepathic projection and constellations? I won't be able to answer the question for you of which one is more powerful. All I will be able to say is that in spending time with Tamil, it was very instrumental to speaking without necessarily knowing what exactly the word was doing. It was almost like in itself a journey. And so I think that many of these languages are like pieces to puzzles, that they can all be explored to expunge memories and programs that existed once within our ancestors' minds. And the more ancient the language is, it seems that the more ability they have to actually get to the root. And then that would answer the final part of your question, the telepathic projections, the constellations, and the symbols even that we see when we're using the third eye that actually run through a person's body. So you actually see like a language running through the body. And I can't say that that language was Hebrew. And I'm sitting here watching it. It's like, in the third eye experiment. So it's almost like 130 trials doing all sorts of things while activated with the third eye through different means. And through that process, I noticed that when I would look at people, there would be a code running through them. Like it would be like a white light code. And we call these light codes. And so that language, I didn't recognize it as being Hebrew or recognize it as being any language that we were actually using. So this just means that there is a higher level of language. And I guess to accompany that with some facts, some of this, I think speaking in tongues has the revelation to the mystery behind these hidden languages. So the purpose of speaking in tongues is actually to prophesy, to literally to speak something into existence that the other beings can't understand, because there's other beings that you can't see. They're disincarnate. And not all of them have your best interest in mind. So every time you're speaking their language, one of their languages is in English, they can tell what you're going to do next. And then if you're speaking any of the languages on the Vulgate, the hieratic and demonic script aspects that are not protected, any of those languages they can understand. But there's languages they can't understand. And these languages sometimes come out when people are speaking tongues and prophesying, because then they're speaking out something directly to their ancestor, directly to the star, directly to the direct connection. And the in-betweens, the things that like to hamper sometimes stuff from happening, or the spies, they can't hear it. They can't understand it. They can't speak that language. Also, this seems to come from, in going through the experience myself and actually denoting everything that was happening, or actually logging everything that was happening, it's like 4 layers back. Meaning that it was further back than, when you can talk to yourself in the mind. Like right now I can talk to myself and I can say, which I just said, go over there. So I'm talking to myself and I'm saying, go over there. So I'm using that one aspect myself. Nobody else can hear that, right? But something else can even hear that. It can hear your thoughts. So imagine one more layer back. Now you're using that space to actually speak what you are really going to accomplish and achieve. Okay? This is called intentions. Okay? Now imagine there's one more space even further back. Okay? One more space even further back that is too deep for the flesh. And it's unintelligible. They call it unintelligible for the flesh, meaning when you're trying to tap into it, you don't even understand what's going on yourself, because that aspect of you is the aspect that's not completely who you are. And this is why prophecies have already been made about you, meaning that there's already been a cast of things said about who you really are and what you're truly capable of doing, but it's hidden to you. And I didn't think this was going to come out today, because I actually forgot to write this down, but it was so revealing when I finally cracked this. It was like 4 days ago, but it was in a process where I remembered that when this thing was happening to me, all this stuff that I'm doing now was being said, but it was also being hidden, like it was just like being sealed, like closed, or like a book. It was being written, then the book was being closed. And I couldn't remember what was written in the book, even though I was actually there for when it was being spoken. And I remember that was because I couldn't understand what was being said. And so I asked about the purpose of this. Why was it so important for me not to know in this stage of my consciousness, the one that also is hungry and the one that wants to talk in its mind and think of things in its mind. And why was it important for that not to know what's going to happen? And it said, because it would screw it up. Literally directly. Higher self said it would screw it up. If you knew, and I was asking the question then when it happened, if you knew what you were going to do in the future, you would insist that this would never even happen, and you would try to do things in your life to make it not happen. So let me speak directly to what this was about. So when I was in Christianity, I had waxed so strong in the Gnosticism that I had like this direct connection to awareness. And it went beyond the Christianity. It started going so far beyond the Christianity, it was becoming difficult for me to understand why even God with so much power was having so much beef. Literally. After all, he's the Bible. He's a cow, so he's got plenty of beef. So basically, why all this hatred? If you're so powerful, why do you need other people? So there was a lot of missing links, the same things that I had when I was a child. And I found out because it's not completely the truth, okay? But in that stage that I was in, if you told me that I was going to eventually reveal that it was Lucifer and Satan that were not actually being depicted in the right context, and actually we should shine a bit more light onto the character God, who is the Germanic king Gud, and his overall behavior, especially when the tradition fell upon him to curry and raise the rest of the dead souls from the necropolis. And he choosing not to do that and erecting himself as the god dog over everybody. So what I'm saying here is that I didn't have that level of awareness yet. So if you had told me that somehow I would be speaking to this level of awareness, none of it would have made sense. And I would have fell down and kept worshiping and, no, God, don't turn me away and all this kind of stuff. So do you see how in our immaturity, if we learn certain things way before it's time for us to be aware of it, then we won't get it. And we'll even try to thwart the growth process within ourselves. So then when the maturity comes and it's time and the season, now you're ripe for the awareness and the wisdom. Now you're able to truly see how this brings life to you. Okay. And then that's when it's unlocked, but it's always in you. And I guess that's what I'm getting at here is that, remember, it's always in you. So every person only needs to unlock themselves from within. We can give as much advice and mentorship as possible, but this is something taking place within. You're responsible for hitting the switch of awareness in order to pull yourself out of judgment or judgment days.